everybody. Let me begin by saying that it's a pleasure to have all of you here today on what indeed is a historic occasion, being the first such meeting in the history of our country. Let me also say that a few weeks back, when we were at the World Press Freedom Day, I happened to be sitting next to Mr. Odindo, and I really hope that after our meeting, he did recognize that I had no horns, just like I recognized he had none. And I hope today, Macharia Gaido will also go home saying, for sure that fellow has no horns. As much as I will also say, you also don't have horns. So I think it's a good beginning. And it's a beginning with ugali, but it's ugali without briefcases. And I do hope, Bwana Macharia, that as we move forward, you will also revenge, and the editors will also call the government for lunch or dinner or breakfast one day, so that it is reciprocal as we move along. Let me say also that the intention of calling you here today is to fulfill the pledge we made when we were campaigning, that ours would be an open, transparent, and accountable government. And that openness, that transparency, and that accountability will not materialize without dialoguing closely and consulting closely with yourselves as members of the Fourth Estate. So let me address myself to yourselves and also to the many Kenyans who are following our proceedings today via various media. And once again, I welcome you all to Statehouse, and I want to thank the Editors Guild, its chairman, Macharia Gaido, and other players in the media industry for accepting our invitation to this breakfast that I envision will be a regular event in our annual calendar. This breakfast is part of my government's outreach to various stakeholders in our economic, political, and social scene. It provides an opportunity and an avenue to share progress that we are making as a country and our views on the way forward. Today's gathering should really have been more of a candid forum through which we identify what issues the government have regarding media, and you too raise concerns that you have on government in relationship to your work. We would have wanted to meet you earlier, but as you are also aware, the formation of the full government took rather a long time due to constitutional timelines. I am therefore happy that members of our cabinet have also joined us for this breakfast. Ladies and gentlemen, the essential role of media is advancing the cause of good governance. It is based on the principles of democracy and the independent sharing of responsibilities between the three arms of government: the judiciary, the executive, the legislature, all as enshrined in our Constitution. The media, the Fourth Estate, is an essential collaborating element in the evolution of modern standards of governance. Technical advances and the presence of the internet provide the media with unprecedented advantages to further the interest of human mankind in modern societies and certainly reach even the furthest points in our country. A free media is at the heart of a true democracy. I am happy that in Kenya, we don't even have a debate about free media anymore. That, for me, is a given. Our commitment is to ensure how the media can more effectively support our democracy by promoting prudent governance. Indeed, in an ideal world, the media should provide a realm of debate and a lubricant to the effective functioning of democratic processes. The media should be the voice of the people, accommodating all voices, ensuring that the more dominant voices in our systems do not crowd out the lesser, ensuring that the marginal voices and ideas are also heard. The success of our democracy lies in treating information as a public good to which all citizens have equal rights. Such information could be market prices of farm produce, national economic data, or even the latest government policy on particular issues of interest. We are not interested as a government in control and propaganda. That would be a disservice to the role of the media in nation building. What we want is openness and transparency that offers benefits to Kenyans. The relationship between government and media need not be adversarial. There should be, and there will be, channels of communication through which media can easily get information from government. Government, too, will provide information on what it is doing and respond to matters that the media may raise as matters of interest to Kenyans. We can, and indeed we will, disagree, but we cannot afford not to work together in mutual respect. For example, the government sometimes finds the media pursuing an agenda that is not in the public interest and elevating falsehoods and wrong perceptions to national debate. This is a matter that we must all search our consciences over. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm asking you today is a partnership for Kenya. We may serve in different arms of government and society, but we all share a common goal to make Kenya a better home for all of us, indeed, as has been tasted by your chairman, Bwana Macharia Gaido. I ask this of you because our country today faces challenges that need our joint efforts. Over 50 years ago, our country had a population of 8 million people. Today, we have crossed the 40 million mark. By extension, demands on our factors of production have been far outstripped by supply. In that challenge are also great opportunities for our people. Where our landmass has remained static, our country boasts of one of the widest fiber optic cable connections on the African continent. We have one of the largest pools of an educated labor force that has proven to be world-class innovators. We have a beautiful country that many would like to visit. We are admired around the world for our sport prowess. And the last quarter of this year alone, we have attracted close to $1 billion in new investment, despite the challenges we have faced. Indeed, there is a beautiful Kenyan narrative that needs to be told. As a government, we will try as much as possible to do our bit, but we need you as partners. These should be characterized by the right mindsets, the right ideas, and delivered at the right time. As a media, you play a key role in the gathering and the processing of information. You occupy a special place through which you can guide public debate for the benefit not just of the media or government, but the whole country and all our citizens. Let us focus debates to issues that move our country forward so that it is not stuck in matters that are not useful to national affairs. Help us lead our people better, devolve resources and services better, make the education of our children better, provide better health care to our people, and make agriculture a better enterprise, amongst other issues. This is possible because we are empowering our counties despite the many reports to the contrary. I'm sure indeed you are all aware that the government has devolved 34% of our tax revenue as per the taxes collected in the last financial year. The Constitution requires us to devolve just 15% of the funds, but we saw it prudent to properly anchor the county governments. Next week, as media, you as media will seek to take an audit of what the Jubilee Coalition government has achieved in the last 100 days. I do not seek to pass judgment on ourselves. Let me, however, assure you that the journey of fulfilling the promises we have made has begun in earnest, and we are focused on delivering value to the Kenyan people. We are laying the foundation for transforming our nation. We are on track to delivering our promises and faithfully implementing the Constitution that the people of Kenya passed little over 3 years ago. Food security, water provision, enhanced security, infrastructural connectivity, and employment creation are all possible. We shall also take the provision of energy and power to the people to unprecedented levels. We have embarked on a mission to connect all our primary schools to the national grid in a 15 billion shilling project. This will enable a success for the 17 billion shilling laptop project. Also benefiting from these interventions are computer laboratories that we are going to have in all our schools for the use by all students. Power to our primary school also benefits local communities who are empowered to grow their small-scale businesses as we light up millions of homes around the country. As part of the promise, we have set aside funds to employ 10,000 teachers. The process of promoting teachers who have stagnated for years will be fast-tracked, while a medical cover, a scheme under the NHIF, is being introduced. The welfare of our teachers will also be improved in line with our economic realities, while still maintaining a public wage bill that is sustainable now and also in the coming years. As we plan for the future, I'm also appealing to the media to partner with us in communicating to Kenyans that we and they must also do their part in their own small way. We must help inculcate a culture of good mannerisms amongst our people. We can use our various media to propagate good road manners, campaign against alcohol and drug abuse, and teach our people to think as Kenyans, brought together by God in this great country, Kenya. You can also say no to the dissemination of negative vices. Let us say no to vulgar talk on our radio stations. Let us say no to hate speech that has often found its way via social media. This is a partnership not for the media or government, but for our country. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude my remarks, I wish to take this opportunity to also announce that we are making changes to the communications department here at Statehouse. Most of you, I think, know Isaiah Kabera, who has been the Secretary for Communication and head of the Presidential Press Service for the last 10 years. Isaiah is now leaving the PPS. Isaiah had been appointed as Kenya's High Commissioner to Australia late last year, and I want to take this opportunity to thank him because we found it necessary that he stays in his current office to see through a smooth transition, and I thank him for that. Isaiah would not be wrong in saying that our country is indebted to you for your service. I thank you, and I indeed wish you very well in your new posting and station. Asante sana. Today, I have appointed Manoa Esipisu as the Secretary Communication over there. And Statehouse spokesperson, taking over the mantle from Isaiah. Manoa has had a distinguished career as a journalist and diplomat, starting off his media career with the Standard Group, where he reported briefly before joining Reuters. It is at Reuters that his stock rose, being recognized as one of the leading financial journalists on the African continent, as well as a newsroom mentor and coach. His work resulted in his being tapped by the Commonwealth Secretariat in London, where he was spokesperson and Deputy Director of Communication and Public Affairs. After 6 years in that post, Manoa has decided that he wanted to return back to the continent, which he did late last year, to directly serve in Africa. In that period, he has been a consultant at a South African media group, and also as a special assistant to the President of the African Development Bank, from where I asked him to come and join my team. I welcome you, Manoa, in your new role, and I am confident that the media will extend to Manoa and his expanded team a hand of cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I just want to point out one or two things. Again, in our effort to find a much more collaborative working arrangement, I really don't want to speak on behalf of Parliament. Let me just speak on behalf of the national government. I have asked our Cabinet Secretary for Information, Fred, to work urgently and put into place a national press center that will be established and equipped by the government, that will provide a base for your correspondents to work from, a place for your correspondents to submit their stories, and also for you to be able to engage with government on a regular basis. So that is something that we hope within a short period, Fred, you can have in place. And in the meantime, the next time I bump into the speaker, all I can do is pass on and relay your message, which I shall do. Also, on the issue of the Statehouse press corps, I had indeed indicated that once we settle, that is something that we would look at, and indeed Manoa will be looking at that, so that we can have a permanent team that is here and that is able to regularly report and engage with ourselves here at Statehouse as we move and make progress, as well as hopefully attend various functions with us, as well as our trips, so that hopefully you'll be able to understand that they're not joy trips, but trips that are actually aimed at improving the stock of Kenya, improving our economic diplomacy, and ultimately ensuring that we attain the developmental goals and agenda that we as a Jubilee government have set out for this country, and hopefully working together with you and millions of Kenyans across the country, we will hopefully be able to achieve and deliver. With those few and very brief remarks, mine were brief. today we had to really make more or less a formal statement just to sort of lay the framework. But I'm hoping that future meetings now will be at least more interactive. And towards that, I'm willing to take a number of questions if you have, so that we at least start our processes going. Sijui kama kuna mtu ako na swali ya kuuliza. Maswali ni mengi lakini anyway, sawa, tuanze.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's indeed a coincidence that I'm the first person you've chosen to make this comment, because I was the first ever journalist in Kenya with my boss Joe Ageo, on the morning of that Saturday, to announce live on air that you had passed the 50% plus one vote.
Yes.
And of course, sorry, my name is Noah Otieno, I'm the political editor for KTN. The first question some very senior politicians in Kenya asked me was whether you had called me to promise me something in PPS. And I said he didn't know. That was a calculation done by Joe and myself, and we happened to be in the studio at that time to announce that. But my comment generates from a statement by the Cabinet Secretary for Information about the openness of the Jubilee government. The reason we are very careful with the Jubilee government, the reason we are very careful with you and the Deputy President and your Cabinet Secretaries is that because of that openness, most editors here would confess, we fear that that things are being hidden in the open, you know, so yeah, there's so much being hidden in the open that sometimes people get angry at us for digging deep to find those small things you're finding that you're feeling uncomfortable with. For example, while in other countries, cabinet secretaries or ministers would, resign or commit suicide because of scandals in their departments, in Kenya, there seems to be so many people talking about or being in charge of the same thing in not just the Jubilee government, but even the previous one, that it's so hard to get that one person who should be asked to, commit suicide or resign for that matter. So that everybody seems to be waiting upon the Deputy President or the President to give the final word. There's nobody who seems to have the last word. Let me give an example of security, for example. While there is an office with constitutional mandate to give the last word on security, when something happens that involves that docket, for example, in Bungoma massacre or something in Mandera or Turkana, you have the Inspector General of Police doing a tour first, telling you nothing much. Then you have the PS, Interior, touring there next, telling you a bit of something here and there. Then you have the Deputy President telling you a bit, so that you don't really know as an editor on the desk on that day, excuse me, where is the last word on this? Who is it? Where does the buck stop, So that it ends up landing on your doorstep in the form of a blame. Okay, where is the president on this? Well, actually, it's not supposed to be you. There is supposed to be somebody who's constitutionally mandated to do that. So if maybe going forward in the next few months of the year or the next 1 year or so, the Jubilee government could structure that system so that there is somebody always with whom the buck stops. This openness would work so well for us in the media. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I think on that, let me say that you've seen I've introduced Manoa not just as taking over as director of PPS. I've also stated the fact that he is also Statehouse spokesperson. And we are now working, and I think Fred has stated that, on an overall communication strategy for the government that will ensure that the information flow is not only constant but timely, right? So I think let us get ourselves established, and you will see that a number of those issues, which we have also noted ourselves, that it sometimes seems like we are speaking in a bit of a disjointed manner. We are now trying to re-look at that whole communication strategy, and I think they will be getting in touch with you shortly to give you the structure that we are now putting in place so that we can avoid those kind of things going on in the future.
I think I'll go next. Your Excellency, the President and the Deputy President, Cabinet Secretaries. My name is David Ohito. I'm the digital editor at the Standard Group. Let me say, I had a dream when I was coming here. And my dream was that you had appointed me the ambassador of the Republic of Switzerland and permanent representative to the UN. And my letter was delivered by Honorable Ruto, accompanied by Ambassador Amina. If that dream comes true, I have no problem. But as I was coming here, Your Excellency, I think it would be unfair to leave this place without asking you the question my daughter asked me to ask you, is that when is she going back to school? Because teachers have been on strike for far too long. And I saw two children. I want to believe they are Manoa's children, and they are not here because teachers have gone on strike. I think that is the elephant question for your regime. It makes you and the Jubilee administration look bad. The long and short of my first question was that these lot of editors, the ladies and gentlemen here, are digitally savvy, competent and compliant. We wanted to see you pick one or two or three so that they can serve this government better. They have been honed and have been working longer, I think longer than any other person. These guys put in longer hours in the administration. Finally, the websites of all government departments, including the Ministry of Information and Communication, are the worst and the ugliest.
The what?
Websites, including Statehouse, Your Excellency. I have to be honest with you. If your government is going to change its face, it must address the digital platforms of communication. Statehouse website, I think, should be done by a Form 1 IT student. It can do better, and I saw my friend Dennis Itumbi here. I think he will help you make the government look better digitally. And finally, still on the same, if you do an audit of the current website of ministries, some were updated, I think, 3 years ago. If your government can address such issues, I think you will go a long way. Finally, still, Article 34 of the Constitution, freedom of the media. If your government will go down to defend that in the implementation of the Constitution and the relevant legislation, you will leave a lasting legacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me begin in reverse order and say that with regard to the websites, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, those you cannot even consider to be websites. 90% of them don't function, right? And this is something that we ourselves have recognized and actually have tasked the Ministry of Information and Communication to actually ensure that within the shortest possible time, we not only have an integrated website, but at least for government as a whole, but at least one that is also regularly updated. So maybe by the time we're meeting again, that is a challenge and a question I'd like you to raise and tell me whether you've seen any improvement. But it is something that we are taking up. With regard us appreciating the capacity and the ability of our fourth estate, I think we do recognize that. We have started by appointing Manoa. Tutaendelea bado. Kazi ni mingi. Hata hizo za Switzerland bado ziko. Kabera amechukua moja tu ya Australia. So bado ni nyingi. Kwa hivyo that shouldn't concern you. But on a more serious note, going back to the last question, the first question you raised about when are our kids going back to school. It is my prayer that they would go back today. It's my prayer that they should never have been out of school. It is very well known that we as a government have, from even before they went out on strike, been in communication with these teachers. I made a public appeal saying that myself as president was ready to sit down and to negotiate with teachers. They went out on strike. We continued to appeal to them, saying that it is not possible for us to talk to people who are on strike. We can only talk on the negotiation table, something that it took them 3 weeks to come to the negotiation table. And you saw that from when they came to the table, within a day or two, we had reached, at least with one union, an agreement, and we're hoping that NAT also will accept and appreciate that they too must abide by the rule of law. Just like you are expected to abide by the rule of law, and just like you will hold us to account if we do not abide by the rule of law. There is a clear court order. Come to the table. We as government are willing to sit down and to look at your issues, but within the framework of the rule of law. Because if we were not to do that, what does that therefore mean? It therefore means that what we are encouraging and saying is that regardless of whatever a court rules, citizens do not have to obey. You don't have to obey. That is not something that is acceptable in a civilized democracy. We must be able to agree that discussions and negotiations must be done in accordance with the law, with respect to the law, and with laid down procedures. That is how, even yourselves, when you are negotiating with your employers, there are mannerisms, there are ways, there are structures that you follow for that to happen. And this is all. And even last week, I went out again and I pleaded with them, please, let us look at this. I have raised this issue of our wage bill severally. In my opening statement when I opened Parliament for the first time, that the wage bill in this country is becoming a serious issue. This is not just an issue for government. This is an issue that should be of concern to every single Kenyan. When we are now talking about, our wage bill hitting close, wage plus our recurrent expenditures hitting close to 70%, what are we leaving for the development of this nation? How are we going to be able to achieve the goals and the objectives that we have? And again there, as I've told them openly, I'm willing to have an open public debate on these issues with all unions, with all government workers, so that we can find a solution that allows for us to be able to look at a wage bill that is both sustainable and that also allows room for our country to grow in order to meet even future needs. This is why we are looking, for example, because we are saying there might also be different ways in which we can help deal with some of their issues. Right? When we talk about expanding irrigation, we're talking about expanding irrigation so that we can expand our food production, because that in itself will go a long way towards reducing costs so that we are actually able to become much more affordable, as a nation. When we talk about investing very heavy in police housing, we're doing so that we don't have to say that the money that they're getting isn't sufficient. We need to be able to house our policemen, because by housing them and giving them decent housing, again, that is another way of looking at their welfare without necessarily expanding, our wage bill. And the same for teachers and so on. And this is why I'm saying we need to be able to look at this from a much wider perspective as opposed to the narrow perspective. Because as I was asking them, you are teachers, I agree. You're asking for additional house allowance. Your house allowance is already harmonized with the rest of the civil service. Now, if we were to give you your house allowance, what do we do with the rest of the civil service? Because when you go out to the public and you tell the public that we're only talking about 11 billion, yes, but we as a government have to look at the wider picture. So it's not 11 billion we're talking about. It is much, much more. And where are we going to get those resources? So this is the kind of understanding that we've been trying to get our teachers to accept that, yes, you have issues. We acknowledge. Let's work together and resolve the ones that we can resolve. Like I said, when it comes to the issue of promotion, let's resolve that. When it comes to the issue of additional teachers, we know we have a shortage of teachers. Let's resolve that. When it comes to the issue of commuter allowance, where definitely teachers are well below the rest of the civil service, that's an area we can look at. When it comes to your medical scheme, let's get you a proper medical scheme so that at least you're properly insured in the event that you require medical attention. When it comes to the issue of responsibility allowance for head teachers and primary teachers, let's look at that. So vast areas that we are able to look at and move forward. But you can't, Rome wasn't built in a day. And like I told them one day, this is an issue that you agreed 15 years ago when some of us were nowhere close to being anywhere in government. Now we are only here for 3 months, and you're telling us what 2 governments over a period of close to 15 years have not delivered, you expect us now to do in 3 months. My friends, let's be reasonable. It is an impossibility. Yeah? The intentions are there, but we must be realistic. And the unfortunate part is that sometimes I'm seeing certain individuals, I don't want to name them, who were in the dockets when they were signing unreasonable agreements, who later became to hold big positions in government. Today they are saying, implement, pay teachers. Where were they in the last 10 years? Why did they not implement it, pay teachers? So, in a nutshell, let me put it to you this way. There is nothing closer, and we are working day and night. Huh? Yesterday I went to bed at 1 o'clock, doing nothing else but just trying to ensure that we get a situation where we can get these teachers to go back to school. We are doing our part. The teachers need to do theirs. Yep.
I think I'm next. My name is Michael Mumo. I work at Capital FM. Let me begin by congratulating Mr. Manoa Sipiso on his appointment and wish Mr. Kabera well in his new appointment. We were told that yours is a digital government, but when you communicate to the public, when you place tenders, when you advertise jobs, you still use a lot of analog platforms. All I wanted to say is that please adopt digital platforms when you're communicating to the public. Thank you very much.
Mpigie makofi. Yeah. That is something definite. Very good. Good point. Yeah. Can I take 2 more? I don't know which ones. My brother down there. And then a lady at least. I'm 100% certain you're not a lady. Yeah, okay.
Could I start? Yeah.
All right.
My name is John Allen Namu. I'm a special projects editor at KTN. My question has to do with security. In past governments, rather, it's been very difficult to audit the budgetary allocations to our security institutions, specifically the NSIS, now the NIS, the military. And I believe, based on what I've been able to see, that is a great sink for corruption and perhaps also driving towards some human rights perpetration of sins against human rights. I'd like to know what your government is doing to be able to open this up to journalists so that we can help you audit our security agencies and help them function better and serve the public better. Secondly, this goes to the conflict that's been going on in Mandera since right before the election. Despite the efforts of your deputy president to talk to the leaders there, that conflict has been raging now for close to 5 months with no resolution in sight. I'd like to know what exactly the measures are, given that the government and the agencies, because I've been down there, the government and the government agencies that represent you down there know that there are 2 militias that are fighting on behalf of both communities and working from either side of the border. Finally, to the question of allegations of abuses of human rights down at the coast, perpetrated specifically by the Anti-Terrorism Police Unit. I'd like to know whether you've heard of these allegations and what you are doing to ensure that there is some sort of mechanism to ensure that our security agencies work within the law and do their investigations while protecting civil rights of Kenyans. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me say that indeed there has been that issue of how to audit our security agencies in a much more transparent manner. That has to be balanced again with the issue of ensuring that we maintain proper safeguards. And one of the areas, again, we're looking at is to see how that could also be expanded by ensuring, for example, that we follow a system more or less similar to that in the US, where you have a parliamentary committee, right, that would be sworn and vetted again to secrecy, but would be allowed to have full access, yeah, and be the representatives of the people in helping audit and to raise issues and matters of concern, because matters of national security, again, we have to be sensitive in the manner in which they are approached and handled for reasons that are well known. But it's how to balance that with the need to ensure greater transparency and openness. But we want to look at best practices in other countries to see how that can be looked at. And it's actually something we've already talked about with the parliamentary committee, the relevant parliamentary committee. With regard to Mandera, you've correctly stated, this really is not an issue of insecurity. Yeah? This is a very unfortunate issue and concern that is two communities, yeah, that are literally at each other's throats. We have had several meetings with leaders from both communities, myself, the Deputy President, and I think where we are now is a situation where we have made it abundantly clear that if this doesn't stop, we are going to have to be forced to take some very drastic measures, which again have their own implication, because this is not an issue of petty crime where you can, these are individuals who are being hidden by, so it's a matter that they themselves must resolve. But failure to resolve it must mean that the government must take a much stronger stance. We have already been in touch with our neighbors, namely Ethiopia, where some of these militia groups are operating from. They themselves have some structural challenges, given the fact that under their federal system, they don't really have a national police force that is based in the area that is of concern to us. But they have promised, as a result of the fact that there may be collusion between the regional leaders and some of these individuals, that they will try and bring in their federal police and federal army into that area to help us also combat this particular problem from the Ethiopian side, because that is where some of these people are running into. But what I can assure you, it is a matter that is we are handling, and I think as a result of some of the initiatives that we have taken over the last 3 weeks, you've seen that the situation now has calmed down, and I think those leaders, and we have said we're going to hold them accountable. We will hold them accountable. And we have various issues. We have an agreement that we have drawn up with them, and we intend to enforce that peace agreement that they signed amongst themselves. So we are on top of that. I think with regard to this issue of human rights, yes, there have been such rumors, but as you also know, we have had major terrorism threats. I have not heard any confirmation of any abuse on human rights, save for allegations. But there again, I want to be very clear that this government is going to be very firm on those issues that are terrorism related. We have seen the damage that terrorism causes to our nation, and we will not in any way compromise the security of millions of innocent Kenyans who are being targeted by a specific view. But at the end of the day, that's said and done, it must be done in a manner that conforms to the norms of normal human rights and to ensure that no abuses take place. But I have not heard of any confirmation, save for the rumors and the accusations that have been put out there.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Linus.
Now, you guys should be like us. You see, now we have met the 1/3 principle. You people don't want to meet the 1/3 principle.
Sure. After this, because you had already given me the opportunity before Namu did.
Okay.
My name is Linus Kaikai, managing editor at the Nation Broadcasting Division, and I want to say thank you very much for this gesture. I think this is really fresh in terms of how affairs have been conducted from Statehouse. I also want to say thank you very much and congratulations to my colleague and friend Manoa Esipisu. President, I don't know whether you read blogs, but I want to say for me personally, you've settled something today. In the blogs, I had a clear lead for that position. And it seems clearly Manoa Esipisu crossed the 50+1. And I'm not going to demand for a recount or a manual tallying. Thank you very much. President, I have two questions.
Yes.
One is on the laptops promised by the Jubilee government. In the light of the events that have come to pass, including the teacher strike, a lot of questions are being asked about your priorities. I want to know whether you would consider rescheduling the laptop project and putting the money into something else, because across the teacher strike we've had a lot of arguments, including one that made a very harsh comparison that if you want to upgrade, for example, the slum project, the slum houses, you don't start by installing bathtubs. So education, a lot of people don't think the laptops for standard 1 kids may not be a priority. That's my question, number one. Number two, Mr. President, is on the foreign policy. You may be aware very well that the last 10 years, in the view of many observers of foreign policy, has been a disaster for Kenya, the foreign front. How do you intend to make Kenya a more robust state, more respected on the foreign front? Because there have been a number of embarrassing events. Just the other day, an individual, Chinedu, from Nigeria, held the entire country at ransom by holding the Kenyan plane. I would say very confidently, a similar incident cannot happen against Nigeria. You can't hold their bicycle, let alone an aeroplane, without causing a lot of trouble. So how do you intend to give this country a robust and dignified foreign policy? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Linus, I think you will agree with me that the issue of laptops was one of the singular biggest promises and pledges that we as a Jubilee coalition gave to Kenyans. It was one of the platforms on which we were elected. And those who voted for us expected that amongst other things that we were going to implement this particular program. A program that is meant to prepare our children to be able to handle the future with the necessary and to equip them with the necessary tools. For us, this is not just the provision of a gadget. For us, this is part of transforming our society and preparing our children and our young men and women for the challenges of a technology-based society. That was the fundamental principle behind that particular agenda. Number two, when we talk of these laptops, we need to consider it not just from the gadget point of view, but also to look at it from the point of view of what does that mean to the schools. As a result of this particular program, and in conjunction, we are hoping, as I stated earlier, to electrify and to ensure that all our primary schools in this country are provided with electricity. What does that mean for the children in that particular school? As part of this program, as those transformers are brought to those schools, we are also, each transformer in each primary school also means that over 300 families will have the capacity to be connected to the grid. What does that do, again, in terms of employment? What does that do in terms of ensuring that we're also protecting our environments by now not having to depend on firewood and etc.? Let us look at this project from its holistic point of view. And truly, for anybody to tell me that this money, which we are borrowing, because we must be very clear, to be able to implement, we are borrowing this money. For anybody to tell me that rather than borrow and invest in our children, invest in our school infrastructure, I should borrow money to pay somebody their salary, I think you've got your priorities. So you want our children tomorrow to be paying off debts that you used to eat today. Surely that doesn't make sense. You invest in the future. And that is why I'm saying, when it comes to the issue of salaries, let us look at it and see how we can, actually afford. We're not opposed. Let us look at other areas of recurrent expenditure where we can cut. But surely for somebody to stand and say, this money that you're borrowing, don't invest in your children, don't invest in your educational infrastructure, don't invest in delivering power to your citizens, but rather borrow it so I can pay Marianne here her salary. Surely, that's somebody who's got his priorities not fixed on correctly. Again, when it comes to foreign policy, it is indeed our intention to have a much more robust policy framework. And I think you will be seeing more of that as you go on. And in fact, it is interesting that you state the Chinedu case. In actual fact, I think that is a clear indication of the firmness that we want to employ going forward. Because if you know the background, we have said clearly, right, that the issue of drug trafficking in this country is an issue that must come to an end, and we are going to deal with it firmly. And we are going to deal with those particular individuals. And they were arrested and deported in line with our policy. And it was clearly known that this was a man who was Nigerian. We have nothing against the people of Nigeria. Nigerians are fantastic people. They have got great business people. We are welcoming them to come here and invest. We are welcoming them to come here and pray, as you see when they wakuje in the, yeah? But those who are coming to destroy our society and our children will not be allowed. And what happened is that he successfully managed, when he got to the other end, to declare that he had been deported illegally. And it was on that basis that they held the plane. And they held the plane on the basis that that plane should bring him back to Kenya. And we basically said, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We had solid evidence, solid reasoning behind deporting that particular individual. And whether they held the ndege for 1 year, for 2 years, for 3 years, yeah, we were not going to bring him back here. Huyo ni mtu yao, wakae na yeye huko, sisi watuache na mambo yetu. And that is the bottom line. Yeah? Yeah? So that was the reason. And I think we stood very firm on that particular issue, and we said that we are not going to buckle just to satisfy, no. So I think you will be seeing a much more robust stand going forward with regard to our foreign policy. Now I'm going to take from The other, yes.
Good morning, Mr. President. And
Good morning, my sister.
Us. We are grateful that you can host us and engage us this morning. I have one question for you, just one. I'll try to follow your advice of being brief.
Sorry?
I'll try to follow your advice of being very brief. As you, Kenyatta, I'm sure you follow online conversations. There seems to be deep suspicion, hatred, and high levels of intolerance between those Kenyans who voted for you and those who voted for the Honorable Raila Odinga. I am sure it's a situation that obtains across Kenya. We seem to have two Kenyas, one in which Kenyans are happy and hopeful, and the other half where the people are generally downcast and, what shall I say, hopeless. So as government, or as President Uhuru Kenyatta, what are you doing to heal this rift so that we can all be very proud to call you my president? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that is a matter that has been of great concern to us. And I think you will have seen that virtually in every public statement that I've made, I've begun by calling and saying that the elections are over and it is time for us to pull together, to work together as people of one nation. I think you've noted that most of my original first trips were in areas that we did not get support as a Jubilee government. And the intention of that was to ensure that all Kenyans feel that this is their government and that this government will be a government that serves all people. When we appointed our government, we also ensured that we tried as much as possible to balance it so that all communities felt part and parcel of that government. And again, that was again intentional and deliberate in our attempt to bring this nation together. The cycle, and I'm really glad you've brought that issue up, because this is something that I would hope that we could work together with, a government, yourselves as the media, as well as other Kenyans. If there are issues or areas of concern, help us work together to see how we can reach out, to those particular individuals. Our intention is to be an inclusive government and to heal whatever rifts may have come out as a result of the heat of politics. And that is why we are consistently saying the politics are over. Now it is time for us as Kenyans to pull together. And even now, as we work towards the 50-year celebrations, this is an issue that we could work together to pull and to put our Kenyans together so that we ensure that that feeling of hopelessness or that feeling of being excluded isn't there. Any suggestions that you can make over and above what we are already trying to do would be most welcome, because the unity of this country is greater than any other kind of development agenda that we may have. The unity is important and essential for peace, for stability, in order to foster growth. And we will do everything, and we are doing everything that we can to ensure that we bring that about. No, a lady. Yes. Okay, Jerry. From Bunge days, at least now you don't have me. You're fighting other guys there now.
My name is Njeri Rugena. I am the parliamentary editor for The Nation. Mr. President, it's very refreshing that you're finally restructuring your communications within government. It's also very refreshing that almost all the cabinet secretaries are on social media, plus I think the principal secretaries and some senior government officials. But even as you work on this, and it's also good that we have a spokesperson for Statehouse. But you appreciate you not go to him for everything that concerns ministries and other government departments. We would like to know, for instance, in ministries, if we want to get to access information, who does one speak to? The minister? Do you go to the principal secretary? Do you look for the information secretary? It has been very difficult, and I'll go back to the Chinedu case, for instance. When there was that drama, it was very difficult to get somebody to speak in government. You go to foreign affairs, we were asking, oh, who do you know in foreign affairs? Even probably we want to reach out to Mugonyi, who we all know. Can somebody help us out? It was really difficult to get information. And that's how you found that most of us in some media houses, we actually had to get information from Chinedu. And you saw the kind of information that I was getting. And he was saying, he was telling us all sorts of things. Okay, I am at the beach and I have this plane. This is my plane now. And these people are my guests. You know, all sorts of things were happening. And this is because we could not get information. Luckily, and eventually, Ambassador Amina, after when there was a breakthrough, I think she sent info. She started communicating through her Twitter handle. So really, as this other one is being worked on, we would really want this streamlined so that we don't have this feeling that the government has some, or ministers that have things they are hiding. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Let me say this. In principle, I am the spokesperson for the presidency, in principle, right? But Manoa is there to support me in that particular capacity. When you go to ministries, it is the cabinet secretary who is ultimately the spokesperson. But like I was explaining earlier, we are now in the process of restructuring our whole communication setup so as to make it more responsive, because we do recognize that there are those weaknesses that exist within the current system. And ultimately, from the presidency with Manoa to the deputy president's office with Mugonyi there, all the ministries will be structured in a manner that we have a proper communication department, right? That is talking to itself, but also communicating to the outside world in one consistent manner, depending on who needs to be saying what. But ultimately, like I'm saying, we don't remove the ultimate responsibility from either the president or the cabinet secretaries. These others are really just the support base and the front office that helps us perform and communicate rapidly and in a much more effective manner. So I think hopefully as we go ahead, some of the problems that you have seen will dissipate with time as we establish ourselves.
One last question.
One last one here,
Mr. President.
No, I said, you know, we haven't met the 1/3 quota yet. There's somebody here. Here.
Thank you, Excellency. My name is
there. Next,
Sorry.
You'll be next.
My name is Betty Dindi. I'm managing editor from Nation Media Group. A very brief question. Other than Africa, countries in Africa and Asia, what is your relationship, the Jubilee government's relationship with other countries in Europe and America, for example? What we get to feel is it's not very rosy. Could you please clarify?
I have not seen a single embassy closed down. Neither have I seen a single mission that has refused to endorse and to acknowledge the fact that myself and the Deputy President were duly elected by the people of Kenya. What you're seeing is also part of our own strategy and program. We also have our own priorities as a government, areas that we want to focus our attention on. Yeah? And you will see us playing up those areas much more than maybe some of the traditional partners that maybe you are more used to seeing previous governments dealing with. I, for example, have stated very clearly that my priority is to see a deepening of the relationship between our East African partners, with our neighbors also in Ethiopia and South Sudan, where I see our potential as a country lying going going forward. And that's going to be a key area of focus for my government, because I believe that there are a tremendous amount of opportunity and potential that exists if we deepen that particular relationship, hopefully ultimately moving towards the ultimate integration and the political integration of our region. That's primary to me. Expanding intra-Africa trade is another area where I believe that we can greatly benefit. And that's why I was saying, when we're talking about Nigeria, for example, when we are welcoming investment, we see tremendous potential. We know, for example, of our own vegetables and flowers, our coffee, our tea, that is shipped from Kenya via Europe and then transshipped back to Nigeria. Why can we not engage with them directly? Gabon, all those West African nations. Those are areas that I think we can greatly benefit from as a nation. So like I'm saying, maybe you will see that and see, oh, maybe there's a cooling of, we are not cool to anybody. We will work with them in any way. But our priorities also, if their priorities are different, maybe ours are also too different, and our focus really are the priorities that we think are going to be able to help us deliver the agenda we've promised to Kenyans. So there is, if they were to close down, we'll be the first to tell you. And we have not heard of anybody say they're closing their particular embassy for political reasons. Yes. Oh, sorry, madam.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Edith Fortunate from the Daily Nation. I have two issues to raise. First is the communication bit. Many a times you have very nice stories, but the time at which you communicate them, like at 8, there are times that I've had to leave the office at midnight because you sent communication that was available in the morning at around 7. Yeah. So, it tends, especially for print journalists, because we need the information early enough because of the deadlines. And then the second issue is on the youth tenders, the 30% that you promised the youth. They've been making a lot of noise that the tender rules have not been reviewed. So
have not been?
Reviewed to incorporate them. So just needed to find out. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think on the first one, Manoa, Mugonyi, take note. You've had complaints, so that's something you can fix, I'm sure. With regard to the youth, we have already made amendments to the regulations to introduce the 30% being reserved for youth and women as part of the agenda. That's actually already been done, and what we're looking at now is how to begin the implementation process. But it's already been done. That's been achieved already. It's been done. The 30% for youth and women. One last question. Yes? Oh, there? Okay, there. Okay, 2 last questions.
Hi, my name is Catherine Gisher. I'm the editor of The Star. I just wanted to come back to something which is not being talked about, but I think we need to kind of get it out there. I'm interested in the ICC because you actually have gone on record saying it's a personal challenge, which we accept. And in view of the changes in the political setup, you're now the president and your deputy, you're both suspect. And it ties in with what Linus was asking about our foreign policy. Suggestions have been made that we're kind of tailoring our foreign policy to kind of sort you out in terms of going out to the African continent to try and get the cases either referred back to Kenya or to Tanzania, or in any way away from the Hague as they are. So I just wanted to get clarity on that, because I think that has been a very common thread in a lot of commentaries and opinions. Thank you.
Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the only place where that issue came as an issue, and it was not even an issue that was brought by Kenya, was at the AU. Other than that, it's not been a subject of discussion in any other meeting that we have taken or that we have had anywhere, right? Our key focus in terms of our foreign policy is how to further our economic diplomacy for the mutual benefit of ourselves and our partner countries, and that will continue to be the driving momentum. When we went and had that meeting in Kampala the other day, we were talking about how we were going to fast track the issue of the new standard gauge railway line. We were talking about how to ensure we have better flow of goods from the port of Mombasa. We were talking about how to fast track the implementation of the East African visa. We were talking about how to ensure we bring Uganda on board so that our citizens, just like we have with Rwanda, are able to travel freely with just their identity card. We were talking about the issue of extending the pipeline from Eldoret through to Kampala on to Kigali. We were talking about linking a new pipeline between Uganda, South Sudan, and Kenya for the flow of oil all the way to Lamu. Those were the issues that we talked about for 2 days. And those are the issues. When we talk with Tanzania, it's about how, as they're expanding their gas network, how will we connect so that we can get that cheap power available to Kenyans? Those are the issues that are of concern and of real importance to ourselves as Kenyans. And yeah, there are those who will say what they will say, but I think the fruits of what we do will prove what our real attention and agendas actually are. My sister, last question.
Thank you. Jina langu ni Jamila Mohamed kutoka Runinga NTV. Nitauliza swali langu kwa Kiswahili.
Karibu Jamila.
Asante. Swali hili linawahusu kina mama. Serikali yako
wahusu
kina mama. Serikali yako ilitangaza kwamba huduma za kujifungua kina mama ni bure. Lakini haswa ni nini bure? Swali ni mama akijifungua atahitaji kwa hospitali pengine siku 2. Mwingine akifanywa upasuaji wa dharura pengine atahitaji kwa hospitali siku 5. Na kuna mengine mengi, mtoto kuhudumiwa, sindano, kuna mengi ambayo pia pale yanagharimiwa. Serikali ielezee kwa kina ni nini haswa bure. Asante.
Tumesema ya kwamba wakina mama wakienda kujifungua katika zahanati au katika hospitali za serikali watajifungua bure. Na hiyo ni kumaanisha ni wale ambao hawatakuwa na complications na pia wale ambao watakuwa na complications. Na mpangilio ambao huko ni wa kuhakikisha ya kwamba kila mama amewezeshwa kupata mtoto bila kulipa chochote. Na ndipo tukaenda pale stage ya pili tukasema pia ya kwamba tunataka haswa zahanati zetu ile pesa shilingi 20, shilingi 10 ambazo Wakenya walikuwa wanalipa hapo awali pia tukaziondoa, na ndio tuweze pia kuweza kuendelea na kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumewapatia huduma hata baada ya kujifungua. Kwa hivyo sisi mpangilio yetu ni kujua ya kwamba it is across the board. Hakuna mtu ambaye atasemekana ya kwamba hapana, mama amejifungua rahisi yeye ndio tunaangalia, lakini yule ambaye ako na complication ambaye stahili apasuliwe, hata yeye pia huduma hiyo atapatiwa bila kuulizwa malipo yoyote. Kwa hayo machache, ndugu yangu William hapa akona point moja anataka kuongeza juu ya mambo hii ya laptop, ya? So nipatie hiyo nafasi, alafu nimwalike mwenzetu Mheshimiwa Isaiah Kabera akuje awarudishieni asante kwa kufika hapa kwetu leo. Asanteni sana na Mungu awabariki.